At Sierra, discover joyous deals on great gifts for everyone on your list. Like cozy slippers, ski gear, fishing poles, bikes, large kayaks, even larger canoes. Whew, which might lead to another discovery. Wrapping gifts is the only sport you need to stay fit this season. 'Tis the season to discover great gifts at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast? Smart move. Being financially savvy? Smart move. Another smart move? Having State Farm help you create a competitive price when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the personal price plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
Taste the forbidden fruit of knowledge. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Politics. It used to be something that people argued about maybe once a year at Thanksgiving, but now it can really shape who we date, how happy we are. So if politics shapes all that, what happens when the person you adore votes the wrong way? Well, I'm here with someone who studied that, an associate professor of psychology at the University of Michigan, and her name is Amie Gordon. Amie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for taking the time to chat with me about this work. I wish we didn't have to talk about it.
You know what? That is curious, isn't it? I'm glad we're talking about it because it's kind of fun and interesting, but I really wish we weren't as well. What motivated you to look into when couples have different political views? Like what goes on with the couple?
Yeah, so I actually, my research, my background's all in relationship science, looking at what, promotes well-being in couples, how couples can thrive. And while I minored in political science back in college and I wanted to be, the president of the U.S., first woman president back when I was in third grade, and quickly put that idea aside.
I got to say, I wouldn't vote for you, but only because I'm not American. And I think they throw you in jail for that.
Well, I realized half the people in the country probably wouldn't like me, and there might be Secret Service that went in the bathroom with me. And back in third grade, those were two things that were draw hard lines at. Never mind.
That's it. I'm going to the bathroom alone. That makes sense.
Yeah. Despite that early interest, I hadn't done much, with political science or politics for many years, and wasn't what my research was on. But political polarization is on the rise. And back in 2016-ish, it really got to me thinking about it, looking at the country and thinking that our country looks like a marriage gone sour. It's like people that don't listen to each other anymore. You could argue whether we've ever done a great job of that, but the evidence seems to suggest there have definitely been periods where we've been better at, being able to work across the aisle. And so I ended up writing an op-ed on why our country needs marital therapy and, kind of going down this route of thinking about our country as a big relationship. And then that led me to think about, wow, what's actually happening in our relationships, right? Is this political polarization seeping through and coming into the bedroom and affecting, how couples interact?
It's an interesting origin story. Let's get to the meat of the study, though. How do you set it up? How do you frame it? How do you set out to test how couples behave when they have differing political views?
Yeah, so pretty basic approach. We were just interested in getting a really big sample to be able to, look across the swath of America in this case where we were focused and say, when we take couples who've been together differing amounts of time and we ask them about their political views, right? So everything from how they believe they and their partner, how similar they think they are to each other, to what their actual political ideology is, to their partisanship, right? What party they belong to. Does that predict, their relationship quality? And do we see consistent, meaningful differences across these huge groups of people?
That's an interesting one, whether they believe it and whether they actually are. Was there a difference in those two?
Oh, definitely. So this is, I teach a large course on close relationships, and there's a few prevailing themes throughout the semester, and this paper, captures it well. Perceptions are what really matter, right? So we do see small differences when we look at political ideology and to less extent partisanship, which is interesting. But really, it's that perception. If you believe your partner has different political views than you, regardless of the truth, then that's when we see the larger effects. More, people who perceive their partner as less similar tend to have lower relationship quality.
On average, what kind of couples ended up with each other, which is to say,
Yeah.
did the people who end up with each other, were they politically similar, dissimilar, a mix of both? Like what was the main distribution there?
Yeah, so that was one of our questions, right? Starting out was just what's the makeup of these samples? Do we see, right, in these large over 4,000 people in total, that people are becoming more similar to their partners over time, partly due to a sort of mating, especially online, where people are saying, they didn't used to do it, but now they're like, here's my political views right there, on the profile. Anyways, we found that most people were. So you can look at it a bunch of different ways, but on average, right, pretty high correlations between the two people's how similar they perceive their partner to be, pretty strong, their political ideology. If you look at party matching, about 3/4 of our couples were reported being from the same party. Only 23% were from different parties, and only 8% were couples where one partner was a Democrat and the other was a Republican. So pretty small sample that's really different from each other and no super extreme differences.
Why do we think that is? Is it because we feel that politics is a stand-in for kind of our values today? Like if I give some political cue and say I voted for this person, people will assume what my values are? Is that the reason we think?
It's a great question. We looked at that as well. So we were interested in what predicts being more or less similar to your partner. And so we had like 18 different things that we threw in our, model, that from personality differences, demographic differences, where you live, are you surrounded by people like you or not like you in terms of your beliefs and values, and relationship differences, right? And again, we see people are increasingly living in these echo chambers, right? So part of it, and we see this, right, if you have a city where people actually have more different beliefs than you may be more likely to end up in a politically dissimilar relationship. But we're increasingly just not exposed to people who have different views, right? So who we are around and end up matching with. And then, as I said, some of it seems to be choices we're making if we're, meeting partners online, which is the most common way to meet someone now. But we didn't really find consistent effects across those 18, like robust predictors of who's most likely. If you think politics is really important to share with your partner, to have similar beliefs and values in terms of politics and general values, you are more likely to end up with someone that you perceive as similar to you, but not as someone who is actually necessarily more similar to you in terms of their reported beliefs. Things like that matter, right?
Yeah.
But overall, it's still, a lot of theories as to why we're seeing greater similarity. It's the most important thing now in terms of like it transcends in some ways like religion and race in terms of who we end up with, but still a lot of out there questioning like why exactly is this happening?
You mentioned this perception again. We talked about it a few minutes ago. Why does simply feeling politically different be more damaging? Why would feeling politically different to my partner make me not want to be with them than the actual values themselves? That one's kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, well, it all comes through our filters, right? So what you believe only matters if I'm picking up on it and feeling it, right? If I'm seeing it, right? I mean, it's we could argue otherwise, right? Like that it could filter through in other ways, but
no, I get it. I just would like to think it's the actual values, not the label or not the perception.
Wouldn't you though? But that is, people think similarity matters, and in our research, we look at it all different ways, and it's that perception. It's the perception that really seems to be driving things. So you have to see it. And then what that happens sometimes is you might have two people who are both, let's say, Democrats, but if they perceive themselves as really different because they fall differently within that liberal spectrum, right, and that matters a lot to them, then they're going to perceive themselves as dissimilar and feel more different from their partner, even if on paper someone else might say, hey, you guys aren't that different, right?
No, I believe you. I'm not questioning the finding. I'm just disappointed by it in a sense, because I'd like to think we're less judgmental than we are, I guess, when it comes to selecting partners.
So I'll tell you a couple of good things we found then that maybe, so people who perceive their partners as less similar, if they're more appreciative of their partner, if they report being better able to perspective take, or that their partner perspective takes, that helps buffer it. We start to see some effects that it doesn't matter as much for people who are maybe in these more respectful relationships where they're listening to their partner, valuing what their partner has to say. So
At least there's a silver lining. Zooming out really high level, what can we take from your study?
Okay, so a few quick ones. The effects are there for actual dissimilarity, but they're pretty tiny. And there are larger, societal consequences if we don't talk to people who have different values and beliefs than us. So I would not say the answer is go find someone who's similar to you. Perception matters a lot. That's a takeaway, right? It's more how we're seeing our partner, whether we're feeling like they're different from us. So finding common ground and similarities could be valuable. But we do see some small effects suggesting that political polarization may play a role. Even for people who don't care about politics, we still find this effect.
Amie, thanks for chatting with me today. I appreciate your time.
It's great chatting with you too.
Amie Gordon is an associate professor of psychology at the University of Michigan.
There are streaming services, and then there's Stack TV. What you want, when you want it. Action, comedy, drama, reality, all when you want it. Dive into Rick and Morty's latest season. Cast off with new seasons of Survivor and The Curse of Oak Island. Or stream binge-worthy gems like The Paper and All Her Fault. All when you want it. This fall, Stack TV has what you want, when you want it. Visit stacktv.ca for more information and start your free trial.